6:30. I hate waking up in the morning, but some days are worth waking up for, and today is going to be one of those days. Oh yeah. Morning. On this beautiful day. I actually had 0 alcohol last night as well, and I'm feeling pretty bloody good. Do you know what? All the guys went hovercraft racing yesterday, and I said, no, I'm going to go to the gym. What a dick. But yeah, we're just about to go in for the briefing, and it's amazing to be back here. I love it. It's such a lovely venue. It's so modern and clean, and it just feels really peaceful here. I just love it. And obviously, the track itself is a spectacular layout. So, without further ado, let us get on. See, if you're late to the party, then people just get all your shit ready for you. I've just been faffing. Well, welcome, boys and girl, and to Portimao and the 2018 R1M for Mummy. So for once,
I know exactly what you're going to say. Go on.
I actually got to go somewhere with a super jizzy bike.
Well, you know. Anyway, we're here at Crescent. Thank you very much to the boys and girls at Crescent.
Yeah.
I nearly said Suzuki then.
I always say Crescent Suzuki.
Yeah.
But it's just Crescent.
Crescent Racing.
Yeah. Who run the World Superbike team, the PATA. So Paul has very kindly let us use his workshop to display the one and only R1M in the country, 2018, which this was actually one of the launch bikes. It just came back in their truck.
It kind of launched very subtly, didn't it? It almost slipped through the net because there was all these new bikes in Milan and there was no real mention of the new R1, or say new, updated R1 and new R1M. So
yeah,
there are very few changes, but the big news for me after riding the Panigale was the Öhlins Smart EC2.
Yeah.
Now we've got that, a blipper, changes to the lift function, and ECU remapping. Is that it?
Yeah, and then a few just sort of minor tweaks.
Yeah.
You do kind of question, is it worth a launch for those updates? And I would say yes. Originally, before I went out, I was like, well, it's got a blipper on it. And thought, oh, there's going to be some updates. But actually, as a package, you've got to remember that when this bike came out, it was the one to beat.
Yeah.
And it had done all its thing. It didn't have a blipper. Now the competition has stepped up, and it's kind of like, right, we need to actually address some of the issues from customers and the requests that people wanted. Number one was a blipper. And apparently, according to Yamaha, the second one was lift interference.
Yeah.
Personally, I would have put ABS. But anyway. And obviously, in the background, Öhlins has been working on the new smart technology. Now, that is the same-ish as in the V4. So instead of doing standard compression, rebound, stuff which someone like me don't really know what I'm doing. It's like compression, rebound. What does that do? How is that going to help corner, acceleration, braking, etc.? So they've made it easier for us, which is nice of them. So now it has a braking support, acceleration support, cornering support, and then 2 general front stiffness and rear stiffness settings. Was that the same as the?
Very similar. Pretty much.
I'll just turn this key on, which has all 3 keys attached to it, which is never a good idea, just FYI. So, hold the menu button down. I think I did that slightly incorrectly. And then we go to YRC, all the way to the end. Interestingly, if you don't want this new setup as well in brake support, corner support, acceleration, you can still go back to the older rebound
can
compression
you?
if you're more comfortable with it.
Ah, right, okay. Don't know why you would, but
Yeah, so T1, we've got T1, T2 and R1. So these settings are for track 1, which is a slick tyre, track 2, which is a treaded tyre, and R1, which is road.
all rain. Like with the
Yeah, I mean you can set the modes up, but this is actually what it's designed to be for. And as you can see on the road, it actually removes corner support and acceleration support.
Yeah.
So let's go into T1. So again, brake support. If you want a bit more, so simple. That's going to stiffen up the front. That's going to scratch the bike pretty badly. Sorry, it's not on camera. So if you want to stiffen up the front, crank it up, crank it down, play with it. Again, if you want more dive, you can reduce it. Very simple. Cornering support, again, stiffer, softer, simple. And then these two at the end are general feel. So if you want more stiffness, which I personally prefer. That's just me though. And rear, a lot of the bikes were set up with quite a soft rear, more grip is what they were saying, but obviously it's down to your own personal preference. So it's literally as simple as that.
And I think the key highlight of this Smart EC2 is the fact that when you do stiffen up the brake support or the acceleration support, that is all you're changing, because just how clever this bike is.
It's not across the board.
No, it's just literally on that moment when you grab the brake, and I think that is something that I'm still struggling to get my head around.
Yeah, and also you've still got if I can figure out how to get into it, so you've still got the manual modes here as well.
Yeah.
So that is non-invasive. It's doing its thing. Once you've set it up, it's exactly as it was.
Nice.
Although inversely, this is, even though it looks like it's going up, it's harder, it's actually softer, because this is still done on the standard clicks from fully closed.
Okay.
So that's...
Just to get really confusing.
Just to get really confusing. But that is as hard as it can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it literally goes up one click at a time. So, and again, you can go through that. And on the CCU app, you can change your modes to whatever you want.
Great, thanks Chris.
Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this time with Suspension with Chris. So yeah, because the bikes are so clever now, it actually knows what you're doing because of the 6-axis IMU. It will know that you're mid-corner, it will know that you're upright on the gas, and it will know that you're on the brakes. So that is how it will still adjust. It's not just rebound and compression across the board, it's event-based.
And this is the thing for me. I mean, riding the Panigale, yes, there's so many variables riding that bike, but the suspension is so much better than the old stuff. So I just assumed that this Olin stuff would make the R1 an extra, make that jump, because it's not just your software, it's not just your tweaks on the dash. It's made as with the Panigale, it's made the difference. So rather than having a dot at braking, and a dot at the apex, and a dot at exit, it's made more dots to make the bolt more fluid.
Exactly. There's a nice graph actually that we can nick from the press kit to put in.
Yeah.
I think it's gone from 9 or 8 spots of reference to 12.
Right. Okay.
So it's almost 25% more intelligent.
How much better is it?
It was already pretty good.
Yeah.
And I'm, as an owner for the last 2 years of an R1M, I would always run it in manual, and I'd have my preferences. Now, the launch schedule itself was quite a hectic one, and it was like, jump on the bike, we've set it up, go and sample it, we put it in this setting, and then you jump off, go and do a class for half an hour, and literally jump straight back on the bike. So it was quite a busy schedule to actually sit down and play with it. Yeah. So the first, pre-lunch, it was basically, let's just ride it. Portimao is a incredibly what's the word? Hard work circuit.
Physical.
So you're recovering your brain and you're trying to sort it out. So is it that much better? It is better. I don't know how much I've really noticed those changes. I think where it really shines is how you set it up and how easy it is to set up now. That's the difference. On the VO2's Bridgestone, it was super grippy. It was so grippy anyway.
Yeah.
The bike would have very little movement. So most of the movement was coming through the suspension rather than tyre squeal or anything like that. So, but yeah, overall, it's an improvement, but it's not night and day.
So next on, what about lift? Because
Yeah.
I mean, that was an area where most more experienced riders thought, let's turn it off because it's quite intrusive.
Yeah.
And it ended up sort of kangarooing and
Yeah.
stuttering and making the bike more staccato, and it didn't really do anything for a lap.
And plus, if you turn it off, you can pull mingers down the straight past
Exactly.
the pit wall and be like, whoa.
Yeah.
But obviously with lift on, you can't do any of that shenanigans. Not that I can do it anyway. So the lift, so yeah, there was, again, we might be able to get another little graph. Basically, in the previous version, it would activate very quickly and then tail off quite sharply. Now, they've made it activate a little bit slower.
Okay.
So it's a bit more, I think actually it comes up higher now, is what it feels like.
That's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. So it comes up higher and then is a bit more natural. And Pierre was saying, just keep it pinned.
Yeah.
When it's up, don't go, oh, I'm wheeling, turn it off, because then you'll end up upsetting the bike, and that is what gives you that kangaroo-y thing.
Okay.
So yes, that's also an improvement. Personally, however, I would still choose to turn it off.
Okay.
Apart from, at Portimao, coming out of that penultimate corner,
Yeah.
onto the pit straight, there's a crest there, which looking at it looks like nothing.
Yeah.
But 140
50, yeah,
when you're
exactly.
coming out and there's a strong headwind, that honestly, it was fantastic. I've got to say, that lift through there was incredible.
Controlled it beautifully, no issues.
Nothing, just
Yeah.
bang,
Yeah.
on, hold it up, down. So I've got to say there, so track specific, it was excellent. But over the mountain, you kind of want to
Show off a
be a
bit.
bit of a knob.
Yeah. I was going to say, because Portimao is one of those circuits where you either have the perfect electronics, as in anti-wheelie, lift, whatever you want to call it, or you just turn it off.
And of course, what this bike has needed from day one of release was an auto blipper.
How's the execution? Sweet?
Crisp. I'm going to say the word violent, but only because it sounds so good.
Yeah.
Because this engine sounds amazing anyway, and it's suddenly going rap, 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 and it seems like there's almost no limiter on the engine going down through the gearbox because the slipper clutch is great. So you just go wham, bam, 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 and it just deals with it.
Okay.
It's, you know how it feels going up? It's quite
Yep.
crisp and clean. It is exactly the same going down. I will have a mention, over the course of the day, I probably had 3 missed shifts,
Miss Blips.
missed blips between second and first,
Okay.
which is quite a common, obviously you've got to travel through neutral,
Yeah.
so it's quite a common thing. And, you're wearing stock boots, your rear sets haven't been set up, they're all standard, everyone's different, you get to learn the bike, so occasionally you will have a little missed blip, but it's worth noting that it wasn't infallible and I wasn't the only one.
As you mentioned before, there was hardly anything wrong with it as such, was there?
No.
I mean, as a bike, it was one of the quickest, if not the quickest,
Yeah.
against all its competition.
Especially out the corner.
Yep. Yeah, exactly, yeah. One thing I would say, I was kind of disappointed there was no Brembos or any other sort of braking upgrade.
Yeah. It's again probably the biggest letdown of the bike. They just feel exactly the same as
Yeah.
they were on the first generation.
Yeah.
And it's the one area that the bike gives you so much confidence everywhere. Everywhere else, it's absolutely almost unbeatable. It's fantastic. But on those brakes, it's just the level of detachment. And when you jump onto the GYTR spec bike, which has simple 2-line setup to a Brembo master cylinder, it was 10 yards further on the braking zone easily. And better than that, just the fact that you felt in control of what it was doing.
The confidence, yeah.
And it would never, I found with the standard bike, it was always quite hard to get it into that apex initially on the brakes if you're trail braking. But whereas on the GYTR, I know there was loads of other components helping you get there, but it was just on it every time. So yeah, the braking is still not great. But I think honestly, if I was going to buy this bike again, I'd whip the fuse out for ABS and just do 2 lines
Yeah.
direct to that. And I think they're not bad calipers,
No.
and it's not a bad master cylinder.
No.
I think it's the way that the fluid goes all the way through the bike, and there's electronics everywhere stopping that.
As a bike, Portimao doesn't really get much better, does it? And how was a lap around that place?
Hard work
Yeah.
for such an easy bike.
For such a 52-year-old.
For such a 52-year-old,
Yeah.
according to my new gym spec,
Yeah.
whatever it's called.
Metabolic age.
Metabolic age, thank you. Well, what's yours? Anyway.
20. Stone.
Yeah. But yeah, it was, it's a hard work circuit. And this is one of the easiest super bikes to hustle.
It's still there's a lot of weight on your arms though, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's a lot of weight on your wrists.
And the main thing I found, because they had a GYTR part-spec'd bike there, which was incredible. We'll come back to that in a minute. But that had aftermarket clip-ons on.
Okay.
And it completely revolutionised the
Yeah.
setup for me. Like I could do, believe it, I mean, even though that was 15 brake, more powerful and rampant engine with increased gearing and all that stuff, I did the longer session on that than on the standard one because it's so narrow.
Yeah.
And all of them had the short screens on.
Standard screens.
Wind protection was bad, and there was really windy out there, like 40 mile an hour headwind going down the pit straight. So you're doing 170, you're into 200 mile an hour wind speed with GoPros and shit on your head.
And that bloody booth on.
And this hair.
Yeah.
That's why it's like this, actually. So it was intense, but I can't think of another, well, maybe one more superbike I'd want to ride around there, and I haven't ridden it yet.
And as we talked about off camera with Alex Lowe's,
Yeah.
he did a ridiculous time on a stock R1 with treaded road tyres, essentially the R11s, Bridgestone R11s.
Bridgestone R11s, standard R1, because there was a couple there for us to ride as well, just to sample everything. He was 4 seconds slower on a standard R1 with treaded road tyres than his World Superbike.
That's ridiculous. That is
in standard
insane.
gearing.
Insane. That's probably faster than some of the other slower guys at the back, isn't it?
In World Superbikes.
Nearly, yeah.
Yeah. And you think you can buy that bike for 15 grand?
Well, you can buy one, really, an old one.
An old one, yeah, it's not much different. Put the stuff on it,
Yeah.
but
That's a good point, actually. While we're on that, put the stuff on it. That blipper cannot be retrospectively fitted to an older bike, is that right?
It can.
It can.
But there's 0 point doing it.
Yeah.
Because I asked them, you have to obviously buy the blipper.
Yeah.
You have to change the loom. You have to change the dash. You have to change a load of other stuff, which basically just makes it uneconomical.
Yeah.
You'd end up spending $2 grand. You might as well
So you best off getting an aftermarket one.
Aftermarket one,
Yeah.
or just go and buy the new bike.
You get one from Bike Sport Developments and get a discount of 44 rewards.
It was quite interesting actually riding the standard R1 round there. Again, being on the R11 cut tyre, it felt like it had a little bit more movement and a little bit more traditional. The VO2s were so grippy and so stable that the bike would rarely let loose a little bit. I'm not talking about letting loose, just getting that feel going.
Any sort of movement, yeah.
Any sort of movement was well, that's because I probably wasn't going fast enough. Well, I definitely wasn't going fast enough. I'm sure if you're pushing the boundaries, then it would move a lot. But it was quite a nice experience on the standard R1, to be honest. You just got to weigh up whether you want is Öhlins and carbon fibre and nickel-plated calipers worth $3 grand?
Well, that leads me to my next question. Is this, the 2018, is it worth upgrading over your older bike?
That is an interesting one. In fairness, I would say, and reality, probably not. Obviously, it depends what you're going to get. R1Ms do tend to hold their value quite well, but now there's a new upgraded bike. You might see the second-hand values dropping on the older ones. So, is it worth it? That's a call for you guys to make. I will, however, say in its defence, when this R1M first came out, it was like, 18.5 grand superbike, bikes are getting too expensive. Now,
It's one of the cheapest.
this is cheap.
Yeah.
This is really, like, value for money wise, incredible.
So what's the price? 2018 price?
I think it's 19.1
Right, okay.
list, something like that.
So
On the road.
It's your limited edition premium spec superbike, which is cheaper than Ducati.
Considerably so.
Yeah, cheaper than the Honda SP2.
Yep.
And cheaper than the Aprilia. So.
And by the time
Sorry.
and by the time you've spec'd up an S1000 RR with the decent wheels, and it's probably cheaper than that as well. And you still get the wiry experience at either Mugello or Silverstone.
Yeah, that's a grand's worth.
That's £1,000 quid. So it's quite a compelling argument.
It's really strange because you look at the superstock scene. No one races superstock in the UK.
Yeah.
Superbike in BSB trim is doing really well. It's won a few championships. World Superbikes, it's just quite,
it's getting there.
It's getting there. They're catching up a little bit, but again, that gap to Kawasaki and Ducati, it's going to be an interesting season, that's for sure. But I just can't understand why a bike that is so capable as a package isn't doing it in track form.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was speaking to Paul Denning, who runs the Superbike team, and he was saying that same thing. The bike turns up and it's fantastic, and they're like, "This is going to be easy," and then it's just finding that extra little bit.
Chasing tenths.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens. But as a prosumer track bike, club level racer, you can't get much better for value for money as well than this. It's still the bike I would choose as a dedicated track bike.
The Aprilia as a track bike is right up there, and now Ducati have gone to V4. That is also going to be right up there. Was there any sort of news from Yamaha? Did he do any bit of fishing, any digging as to what was going to come next after the crossplay?
I did do a bit of fishing, and it was a direct question of, are you going to go to a V4 at any time? And pretty much stonewall no was the answer I got. It was explained that the cross-plane engine is part of Yamaha's DNA.
Yeah.
That is a core component of the bike. And even on their GP bikes, it's not known for outright horsepower, it's the delicacies, the usability, and that is what this bike is built around. Now, interestingly, I did mention, because the Panigale's got a reverse crank, and his eyes lit up and was like, this was one of my ideas. So, obviously there to do testing, this is just a silly video on the internet, but I think everyone is going to be looking at that, not just Yamaha, but I think a reverse cross-plane crank R1 would be spectacular for 2021.
You heard it here first.